Let's talk a bit more about engaging with your tech transfer office and when you should do that. If you have not already watched the video about public disclosures, please watch that one in conjunction with this material. You don't have to wait until your technology is at some special stage to start having these conversations. You really can be in the initial stages of research and invention and start establishing that relationship with the TTO. Sharing where you're at and finding out at what stage your institution would like to see a formal disclosure document filled out. As I mentioned, if you do have federal funding, you must disclose any inventions that arise from that research. The TTO will report that back to the funders, so it's really important they get the information in a timely fashion to make sure your university stays current with federal reporting requirements. You may think, I'm too early stage. I don't even have a prototype yet. Do I really need to think about this conversation? Like, you don't have to be at any particular stage of development to start talking with your TTO. Sometimes researchers, especially graduate students, are curious about whether to disclose ideas that come from classes they've taken or side projects they're working on in their lab that aren't strictly tied to their assistantship or lab group's primary work. This is another instance to have a conversation with your TTO. Depending on what resources you use to make that innovation, the resulting IP may still be owned by the university. Even if your idea initially came from some mental exercise in a class, if you end up using substantial university resources, the IP will likely be owned by your university. So clarify early with your specific university's TTO. I also want to mention, even if you have no interest in commercializing an invention yourself through a startup, it's still important to disclose. One of the pathways to commercialization is licensing technologies invented at the university to existing companies. That is a large part of what TTO teams focus on, protecting your IP and licensing it out, even when the inventor doesn't want to be personally involved in the commercialization pathway. If you're going to collaborate with anyone in industry, it is also important to have a conversation with your TTO. They can set up the right documents in advance, non disclosure or confidentiality agreements, so you're not put in a position where you might have an accidental public disclosure. They also help with material transfer agreements, MTAs, and other agreements that come into play with industry partners or industry sponsored research. Every university is set up slightly differently as to who initiates those agreements, but it's never a bad thing to start with the TTO when you're working with people outside the university. Let's talk about some of the myths around working with your TTO. There may be misconceptions about the tech transfer process, and we hope these videos help debunk those myths and clarify the process. Myth 1: every disclosure gets patented. As we've mentioned, sometimes when you disclose an invention, it will not be patented or protected. That can be a difficult decision to hear, and it's not news the TTO team wants to deliver to any inventor. There are many reasons this happens: assessing the market for licensing potential, assessing the prior art, the patents that already exist in the field, and reviewing academic literature that may overlap with the disclosed work. In the end, IP protection is a business decision for your university, which has limited resources. The TTO team must assess not only whether protection is possible, but also whether it's a good investment. Myth 2: a rejected disclosure means rejected research. We want to make it very clear: if your innovation is not protected, it is not a judgment on or rejection of your underlying research. Your TTO is not assessing the validity of your research or your contribution to your scientific field. This is about the likelihood that a commercial pathway will be successful. Those are very different things. Myth 3: the university won't own a side project. Let's say you use your spare time to develop some kind of side project. This is where you really need to be careful. If you're using your university's resources, even in your time off, that will still create an issue where the university owns the IP because it was developed using university equipment or other resources. Talk with your TTO if you have an idea for a side hustle. They can help you understand how to keep that IP separate from your day job if appropriate. Myth 4: the decision is taking too long. Sometimes the decision making process can feel slow. It is a complex process and it does take time. There are often multiple people involved in assessing different aspects of the decision, and the office is handling multiple disclosures at once, often consulting with external attorneys on complicated matters. Trust that the TTO is doing the best they can, and if they come back to you with clarifying questions, respond as best as you can to keep the process moving.